Hey folks, PC Outcast here, and welcome back to more Elder Scrolls 6 speculation. Oh yeah, I'm sure you haven't had enough of it. So, we have E3 coming up in, 10 days, approximately. June 14 to 16. And Bethesda has been teasing all sorts of things that there might be something related to Elder Scrolls, possibly a Skyrim Enhanced Edition, possibly some kind of other spin-off. I mean, we already know about Elder Scrolls Legends. Maybe they'll just be talking about the release date for that. Or maybe they'll be talking about an expansion for the Elder Scrolls Online. It could be anything. It could even be Elder Scrolls 6. And why do I say that? Well, I have one major reason why it could be announced, and one major reason why it might not be announced. And we'll get to that in just a minute. First of all, let's have a brief overview of the history of Elder Scrolls. So the Elder Scrolls began in 1994, so that's 22 years ago, as the Elder Scrolls Arena. Immediately after its release, work began on the sequel, which became Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, and that was released in 1996, just 2 years later. After Daggerfall's release, development began on 3 more games: Battlespire, which was originally going to be an expansion to Daggerfall, but ended up being repackaged into a standalone game; Redguard, which was like an action-adventure spin-off in the Elder Scrolls universe; and Morrowind, the latter of which was released as Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind 6 years after Daggerfall's release. Immediately after Morrowind's release, development began on Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which came out 4 years later, in 2006. And immediately after that, development on Skyrim began, which was released 5 years later in 2011. And here we are, 4.5 years since Skyrim's release. And that leads to my big reason why I believe Elder Scrolls 6 could be on the horizon. It has been, with the exception of the release of Daggerfall only 2 years after Arena, an average of 5 years from one game to the next. So between Daggerfall and Morrowind, it was 6 years. Between Morrowind and Oblivion, it was 4 years. And between Oblivion and Skyrim, it was 5 years. And here we are in the 5th year of Skyrim, since Skyrim. So it seems the series has basically been in continuous development. The games were the sequels were either conceived of during the development of the previous game or immediately afterwards, and work just continued on because it's been a successful series and each release has been more successful than the last. So we have no reason to believe that Elder Scrolls 6 has not been in development since Skyrim's release, which means it's nearly ready to be, it's nearly finished. I mean, if it's holding to the 5-year average. And that brings me to the one major reason why it might not be announced this year: Fallout 4. Each time Bethesda has worked on some kind of a spin-off or another game, it's delayed the release of the next Elder Scrolls game. So for example, after Daggerfall, they were working on 3 games, and so it took 6 years before Morrowind came out. Same thing with, there's only 4 years between between Morrowind and Oblivion, despite the fact that there were 2 expansions to Morrowind and 3 spin-offs, which they actually had developed by another company. But then we had Fallout 3 that came out in 2008, and that seems to have maybe had a slight delay on the release of Skyrim. Not that they, were not developing it, because we know that they were working on Skyrim right from the release of Oblivion. And that really actually makes it pretty impressive that they were able to release 3 AAA titles in the space of 5 years, in the form of Oblivion, Fallout 3, and Skyrim. And Fallout 3 was a massive amount of work to bring it from the Fallout 2 universe that they'd bought to the 3D, RPG, 3D first-person RPG thing that they created with Fallout 3. But now Fallout 4, of course, came out only last year, and it's in between Skyrim and Elder Scrolls 6, so it may also slow down the release of Elder Scrolls 6. So those are my reasons. It's been 5 years. The average development cycle is 5 years for an Elder Scrolls game. So with that, it fits that we might see Elder Scrolls 6 announced to be released this year or early next year. However, Fallout 4 is the wrench in the spokes that might throw that off by a year, 2 years. We don't really know. But we do know that Bethesda has been growing as a studio all along. So it is conceivable that they could have been working quite heavily on both Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout at the same time, and that they could release them fairly close together. That's not unreasonable. It's not like they've never released more than one Elder Scrolls related title in a short period of time. They released Daggerfall, Battlespire, and Redguard all within 2 years. So there you go. Those are my reasons. I guess we only have a few more days to wait and wonder, and then we'll hear if anything's released at E3. And otherwise, yeah. So share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Do you think it's possible it might be released, or do you think it will not be released, and why?